The first thing to figure out for a good thesis is this: where am I going to win? If you're going into a hugely competitive market where sellers are hearing from hundreds of potential buyers, where do you have an opportunity to have the greatest success? So ask yourself, what do you bring to the table that other people don't? It comes down to identifying your strengths, advantages, and opportunities, and there's a couple ways to do that. I recommend you do all of them. First, self-reflection. There are some big questions you should ask yourself. You want to take some time to think about your big picture. What sort of lifestyle do you actually want to create? In other words, by buying a business, what are we actually solving for? What's going to make us the most happy? And what kind of life do you want to be living? Second, I like to ask myself, what would you do if money or expectations weren't a consideration? What would you want to be doing in the world? If you find something that brings you real fulfillment, you're going to bring that extra oomph to your search, and that might set you apart from other buyers. On the other hand, I see buyers often who are chasing spaces just because they think that's what they're supposed to do. Oh, HVAC is hot, or financial services are hot, so I'm going to go look for a business there. But ultimately, I think that's backwards. But by doing this, more importantly, it will keep you getting up in the morning when the going gets hard, which it will, no matter what business you're in. So you should be in one that's going to have you super inspired. Another good question: what is your appetite for risk? Owning a business, it is stressful. I promise, I've been there. If you're taking this course, you're probably ready for that type of setup. You're ready for the adventure and the stress that comes for it. But risk is another component that comes along with stress. There are stressful businesses and there are extremely stressful businesses. And there are some that can leave you, well, cash challenged or up late at night trying to figure stuff out. Here's an example to illustrate. One of my businesses is a fireworks company. We make half our revenue on just 2 days out of the year. So if something goes wrong on one of those days, that's a big problem because it takes us 6 more months until revenue comes in the door again. And are you ready to handle that kind of situation or the stress that comes from different types of businesses? That's really something to consider. You have to be honest with yourself about whether you have an appetite for risk and how much risk appetite you have. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to figure out here when we buy a business. We're solving for a better life for ourselves. In the downloads for the course, you'll find something called a SWOT analysis. We've all done that if you've gone to basic marketing classes or read a marketing book, but it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Check it out. I think it's actually a really good way to detail your place in the market and how you're thinking about yourself as a potential buyer. And that translates into the types of companies you're going to look at buying. Okay, so we've done some self-analysis. We've asked ourselves what we think. Then I love to do it the next step. I love to ask other people. And this is a great other way to get some data about yourself. As much as we think we really know ourselves, the people that know us the best are the ones that get to watch us from the outside. So I like to go and talk to previous coworkers, bosses, spouses, friends. These are the people that you've worked with who are going to know you super well and understand what you're trying to do in terms of buying a business. Ask them, what sort of business should I buy? Should it be high risk, low risk? Should it be customer facing? Should it be one where I don't have to go out and schmooze a bunch of people? Ask them what your strongest strengths are and where you're weak. If you have a thesis started already, I suggest run it by them. Ask for honest feedback. They may have an opinion about that market, but they also will have an opinion about your fit in that market as a buyer. Tell them what you think is the weakest link in your plan. Tell them where it's strong. It might help you get their real opinion. The third way I suggest getting to know yourself is via some of the systematized personality assessments. There are some cheap ones you can do and some not so cheap ones. The ones that are expensive are Culture Index, Predictive Index, StrengthsFinder is a bit cheaper. These are all kind of based on different models of psychology and personality ideas that have come from science over time. Some people like them, some people hate them, but I think the thing that ties them all together, whether you do an expensive one or a cheap one, is it makes you slow down and really think about how you're wired and the type of person you are. So we've linked these all below in the course documents, and doing these assessments gives you a way of thinking more deeply about yourself and understand how you're wired. Because the danger here is you go buy a business or create something that forces you to do something that's not going to give you a ton of joy or fulfillment. You'll burn out. You send me out to go be a customer schmoozing type person, I'm going to hate life. But you put me into other businesses where I can think strategically and creatively, like I'm going to be a really happy camper. And ultimately, I have to be in businesses that are going to match the type of person that I want to be and the type of person that I am. Find a niche that aligns with your natural skills and interests. And you want to figure out what gets you out of bed in the morning. Because some mornings, your love and passion for what you're doing will be the only thing that gets you out of bed, because all the crap you're going through running a business will be the things that make you want to stay in bed and sleep in. So this is the soft side. Now let's move to something, well, a bit more concrete. Inventory your resources. You've thought about the lifestyle you want to have. Now let's consider the resources you have at your disposal. Questions I like to ask. How much capital do you have for the deal? How many potential investors do you know if you don't have all the capital for the deal you want to do? Which parts of businesses do you understand and which parts are you unfamiliar with? Ultimately, you want to choose businesses that are not only going to play, as we talked about before, to your personality strengths, they want to play to the strengths that you have in your career and the resources and network around you. Someone with a successful career in banking probably shouldn't buy a backhoe company, even though they do, because, well, it doesn't align with their unfair advantages. What do you know in buying a backhoe company that, well, other people don't? Now, that doesn't mean a banker, well, shouldn't buy a backhoe company. There's a lot of things in banking that are parts of running a backhoe company. But it's also worth slowing down and just saying, well, wait a second. Does this make sense if I'm a banker doing this? And understand how that fits into the entire thesis of what you're doing and the fit for you as a potential buyer. And to talk a little bit more about this concept, I know someone who has an extensive experience managing a marina. You know, the ones with boats where they park and buy gas and all that kind of stuff. He's now out there looking at, well, completely unrelated businesses to marinas. And I think he's missing out on the opportunity to use his in-depth knowledge and connections in the marina space to go look at a business there. Or here's a personal example. Back in 2020, I was looking for a new business to get into. I have a lot of real estate knowledge. So I built a hospitality business with drive-through coffee shops. You know, real estate and physical stuff. Eventually, though, I realized I didn't have as much of an advantage as I wanted going into a business. My expertise in software and in structuring deals and social media and how to run services business would have been better used elsewhere, like in the fireworks business that I'm more familiar with, or the software businesses that I'm involved in as well. So eventually I learned my lesson and I sold the coffee business to some people with deep experience in the coffee space. They had the knowledge and connections to take that business to the next level, and I have no regrets from walking away. The biggest mistake I see is people buying businesses they know nothing about. And they either haven't learned about that business through the search process, or they don't know anything about it from their history. And so I think there's a key here, which is to start by looking for niches that play well to your resources. And this is a big mistake I see people make. They buy businesses that they don't know anything about, and they haven't spent the time in their process to become an expert in that industry, and they haven't leveraged their strong background. One of my philosophies in life is start immediately. So this self-reflection stuff and building your thesis and your personal advantages and all that kind of stuff, these are a great way to find your starting point, and they will inform everything we're going to do from here on out. But a word of warning. Don't fall into analysis paralysis here. Spend a week or two max, because everything you do here can and will change when you actually get in and start doing. Once you're actually looking at businesses and talking to brokers and sellers and looking at listings and SIMs and all that kind of stuff, you're going to learn a ton about what you actually like and don't like. So don't spend a huge amount of time narrowing down exactly what will speak to you as a person and exactly what kind of life you want to create, because ultimately you can get overinvested in a particular course. Strong opinions, loosely held, is what you want to go for. As you learn, you'll come back and tweak everything, and that's inevitable and natural. So when should you start looking for a business to buy? There are lots of opinions on when is the right time to start. Of course, if you need to hold a job right now, you don't have to quit. But in my opinion, the most effective way to run a search is to go 100% all in on finding the best business for you. You're thinking about it in the shower, while you exercise, in every moment. How do you develop and win? Treating this as a full-time job is the best way to maximize your chances of getting lucky and succeeding in the process. Of course, people can do it as a sideline, and I hear about those things, but they don't seem to do as well as the people that just go all in and really learn the market. In part 2 of this course, I'm going to talk about the full court press process and give you a big list of things you can start doing. But first, let's nail down some specifics. It's time to make one of my favorite things in the whole world. Yep, you guessed it, a checklist.